Hey there, addicted and non-addicted, neurodivergents and typicals. Today's video is going to be a continuation on the topic from last week on ADHD and addiction. I'm going to share with you some of the research on the subject. I'll also leave links to it below the video. So let's begin. First, I want to start with an article I mentioned in my video, Autism and Alcohol, the Research. I'll briefly summarize it here, and you can go and watch the video to look at it in more detail. The study shows a neurobiological link between ADHD, OCD, autism, and SUD. A dysregulation in the corticostriatal circuits is displayed in both humans and animals having these conditions. Dopaminergic dysregulation is shown in all the above conditions as well. And in the case of ADHD, the cognitive corticostriatal loop is impaired. Next, I want to cover an article from 2021 by the University of Toronto. It is titled Attention Deficit Hyperactivity Disorder and Alcohol and Other Substance Use Disorders in Young Adulthood. It shows the findings from a Canadian nationally representative survey. It starts with stating that half of the people between the ages of 20 and 39 with ADHD have had a substance use disorder. The average percentage of people without ADHD is just 23.6. This makes people having the condition more than 2/3 more likely to have experimented with substances. The study also mentions that more than 1/4 of the people with ADHD also suffered from depression compared to the rest of the population. And this may be a leading cause to those who have the condition to self-medicate to calm their anxiety or deal with their depression. The study also states that people with ADHD often experienced a childhood trauma, with 35% being physically abused and about 11% being sexually abused by the age of 16. I want to add my own share of experience here. I had an emotionally abusive parent, my mother. Put under that pressure at home, my brother, who is 8.5 years older than me, experimented with substances, including heroin, by the time I became an adolescent. This influenced me heavily as well for going into drugs. I cannot really say I suffered from physical abuse, though I did get beaten several times for being drunk when I was a teenager. The paper goes on to show that alcohol is the number one substance of abuse for young adults having ADHD, with about 36% abusing it. Then cannabis use follows with 23%. The study also found that people of that age with ADHD are 3 times more likely to have SUD compared to their peers not having the condition. The reason behind it might be that those with ADHD experiment with substances at a much younger age. This results in a riskier and much more severe use later in life. The study comprised of 270 young adults having the condition versus 6,602 controls who did not have ADHD. Next, I want to look at an article called ADHD and Problem Gambling, published on the Edge Foundation website. It begins with some statistics like 20% of young gamblers having ADHD and about the same percentage of college students too. It goes on to state that people who start gambling at an earlier age go into more severe and long-term addiction to it, just as experimenting with substances discussed in the previous article I covered. I wish to add my own experience with gambling here. The first gambling game I played was poker, and I was in secondary school at the age of 12, and I bet real money there even though it wasn't much. It was a powerful and exhilarating experience for me. No wonder I got hooked. The paper also states that men are more likely to develop a long lasting addiction, while women tend to develop it quicker. The article moves on to reasons why ADHD can make people more likely to become addicted to gambling. It is due to their impulsivity, social difficulties, emotional dysregulations, executive functioning issues, proneness to boredom, and their constant need for overstimulation. All of this is due to the dysregulation of their dopamine reward system. Next, the article touches on ways to recognize a gambling problem in somebody. The need to increase the amount of money gambled, using gambling as a relief for anxiety, stress, depression, and guilt, chasing after losses, lying about going gambling, losing a job or a relationship due to gambling, and last but not least, borrowing money to gamble. I could summarize this all by just saying that going gambling is a reason enough to suspect that someone is addicted to it. I mean, why even go there? What is the point going to an exuberant, extravagant place like a casino, packed with rich and poor people alike, filled with adrenaline and anxiety, wasting their riches or their life savings on a fleeting sensation? It's a ridiculous thing to do. Now I want to briefly summarize a paper and two articles on the topic of ADHD and technology addiction. The paper is from 2015 called Risk Factors Associated with Online Game Addiction, a Hierarchical Model. It compares various risk factors contributing to gaming addiction. The study shows that ADHD, impulsivity, self esteem issues, family environment, social anxiety, and depression can significantly increase the risk of developing an addiction to video games. Next is an article from the Drake Institute of Neurophysical Medicine. It correlates video game addiction with decline in academic performance. It states that a dysregulation in the frontal lobe in people with ADHD can cause the brain to be stuck in slow brain waves. This makes concentration on longer tasks difficult. And if you remember, lacking concentration on longer tasks is one of the main symptoms of the condition. Moreover, connections in the frontal lobe can be weakly connected. Gaming overstimulates kids with ADHD, making it almost impossible for mundane school activities to compete. Moreover, being addicted to video games worsens the problem with concentration, making it even harder to concentrate on slower brainwave tasks. It just causes the brain to become even more underpowered and underactivated. The second article is from 2016 and can be found on the Psychiatric Times website. It looks at video game addiction associated with ADHD and psychiatric conditions such as OCD, anxiety, and depression. The article mentions a study on addictive technological behavior done in Norway. It surveyed 23,533 adults with a mean age of 36. It found a correlation between the conditions and compulsive and excessive use of social media and video games. Age, on the other hand, showed an inverse relationship to addiction to technology. This suggests that prevention may be the key for younger people. And so far, that's my impression from all the articles beforehand. The study also showed that male population was significantly more prone to video game addiction, while females were more inclined for social media overuse. The last scientific paper I'm going to go over in this video is from 2019. It is called Mini Review: Socio-Cultural Influences on the Link between ADHD and SUD. It starts off by stressing out that ADHD and SUD are absolutely connected. About 1/4 of people having ADHD have SUD as well. It also states, as already shown in some of the articles I mentioned, that people with ADHD start abusing substances earlier in life. This worsens their pattern of use and outcomes of treatment compared to those who are not having the condition. The study proposes that substance abuse is also a result of family circumstances and socio-cultural factors. Many people who start abusing substances also have someone in the family with SUD. Same goes for people having ADHD, according to the paper. However, I am on a slightly different opinion on the condition being strictly hereditary, and I'm going to touch on this subject in future videos. The study also mentions that problems with impulsivity, dopamine dysregulation, and executive functioning dysregulation are also contributing factors. The research then moves on to socio-cultural factors behind drug abuse. These include social activities, availability, potential legal consequences, economic disparity, and inadequate implementation of policies related to drug use and high-risk groups. They play a significant role in recognition, diagnosis, and treatment of ADHD. First and foremost, the study suggests that ethnic minorities in the US, Europe, and Israel are far less likely to be diagnosed and treated. This is due to a lot of factors like limited knowledge of the condition, fear of stigmatization, distrust in the school or healthcare systems, and also family behavioral tolerance towards symptoms of ADHD. And cultures like Christian and Muslim Lebanese, hyperactivity and impulsivity may be validated as normal behavior for boys, for example. Further, the study goes on to adult diagnosis possibility as a factor, which in some countries is very hard or impossible to attain if there wasn't a child diagnosis for that person. I want to add from my experience that such is the case for my own country of Bulgaria. The study adds that higher rates of SUD and low socioeconomic status can heavily influence the environmental factors. This can greatly increase the risk for ADHDers developing an SUD. Next, the research goes over social cultural predictors of drug use and abuse. These include things like cultural norms, religion, ethnic identity, traditions, social cultural rules and control, acknowledgement of existing issues with addiction, socioeconomic status, and exposure to toxic chemicals and pollutants. Last, the paper touches on the socio-cultural aspects of SUD treatment. Again, disbelief in the healthcare system as well as fear of stigma play a role in ethnic minorities seeking help. Studies done on cognitive behavioral therapy show promising results in both minority and non-minority population. However, culturally adapted interventions show much better results in minority groups. This concludes the episode on some of the research on ADHD and addiction. It is obvious that there is a clear connection between the two. I am going to further explore the relation between neurodivergence and addiction in the future, so stay tuned. I hope you enjoyed my video, and I would love to see you next time. Until then, peace be with you. Losing a job or a relationship due to gambling. Losing a job or a relationship with online game addiction, a hierarchical model. Gaming overstimulates kids with ADHD, making it almost impossible for mundane. Gaming overstimulates kids with ADHD, making it almost impossible for mundane. It is called mini review. It also states, as shown in the previous